Japanese management leads with trust, not just authority. In the global business landscape, where authority is often exercised through rigid hierarchies and control, Japan follows a different path, leading with trust. From corporate giants like Toyota and Panasonic to smaller firms, Japanese management rarely begins with orders, it begins with collaboration. They believe that people perform best not when they are tightly watched, but when they feel respected and trusted. This is not a soft approach, it is a long-term strategy rooted in deep organizational culture. Trust is not a weakness in leadership, it is the mechanism for fostering cohesion, autonomy, and lasting innovation in organizations. Great managers aren't effective because they command well, but because they inspire others to act responsibly on their own. In most Western management models, power is linked with hierarchy and control. In contrast, Japan values a trust-based leadership model as the core of long-term stability and effectiveness. This article analyzes how Japanese leadership builds trust within organizations, replacing hard control with soft but powerful influence. Draws from the Toyota Way, case studies of Japanese firms abroad, and phenomenology analysis of employee perceptions under trust-based leadership. Trust-based management fosters engagement, reduces monitoring costs, enhances intrinsic performance, and promotes self-regulation among teams. Trust in management doesn't weaken authority, it deepens leadership capacity. It is an organizational value that can be learned and adapted across cultures. A real-life scene from a Japanese factory in Indonesia. No yelling, no barking orders, yet everyone follows and performs. What builds this quiet power? In an auto parts factory on the outskirts of Jakarta, the workplace is eerily quiet. No yelling, no intimidating stares. The manager, a Japanese man in his 50s, walks by, nods, or places a hand on a worker's shoulder, and operations adjust seamlessly. Employees correct errors and coordinate smoothly without reminders. This isn't magic, it's the result of a management system built on respect and the gradual accumulation of trust. There is no fear, but there is awareness. No coercion, but a deep internal commitment. Leadership here doesn't run on institutional power, but on credibility forged through listening, patience, and shared progress. When a leader doesn't need to raise their voice to be heard, that's when management has reached its deepest level. Mutual autonomy and trust. Trust is structured through listening, delegation, and tolerating controlled mistakes. Many mistakenly believe that leading with trust is an emotional and disciplined approach. But in Japanese management, trust is not a personal indulgence. It is an organizational asset that is designed, cultivated, and sustained. Trust is structured, not spontaneous. Japanese managers take time to observe before acting, listen before judging, and delegate incrementally rather than impose completely. It is built through consistent behaviors, punctuality, promise-keeping, responsibility, and sustained by owning up to mistakes. When employees feel they are guided without being watched, they develop intrinsic initiative and loyalty. Trust-based leadership is therefore not a weakness, it is a long-term strategy that generates durable inner strength within an organization. The Eicho Renso Model Report, Communicate, Consult maintains transparency without excessive oversight. While many Western management models rely on dense monitoring systems to ensure performance, Japanese corporate culture employs a softer mechanism. Ho-Ren, so short for Hukoku Reporting, Rinraku Informing, and Sudan Consulting. This is not a slogan, it's a structured organizational communication process. Employees are encouraged to report progress even when nothing is wrong, maintain continuous contact with colleagues, and seek consultation proactively before problems escalate. This proactive transparency substitutes top-down surveillance. Ho-Ren so not only increases trust and prevents crises, but also creates a culture where people feel safe to speak. In this model, leaders don't need to know everything, but they know the right things at the right time, because the flow of information is steady. Transparency here is not enforcement, it's a cultural commitment. Japanese managers often act as coaches, not commanders, guiding employees toward maturity. In Japanese corporate culture, the leader is not a commander above, but a mentor beside the team. They don't have to be the most knowledgeable, the loudest, or the fastest to act. Their role is to build an environment where employees think independently and act with accountability. Instead of offering immediate solutions, they ask questions, spark reflection, and allow employees to discover answers themselves. This leadership model requires patience because it invests in the process, not just the outcome. They measure their success not by control, but by the growth of others. When managers accompany instead of impose, they don't just build teams, they cultivate learning cultures. This is the distinction between managing people and developing people. As the world shifts to flexible and distributed work models, the mentor leader is more vital than ever. Without constant monitoring, organizations save time, reduce stress, and boost creativity. A trust-based organization doesn't need elaborate surveillance systems or expensive tracking software. Instead, it invests in people, training employees to self-reflect, self-manage, and self-assess. In many Japanese companies, workers clock in honestly, propose their own deadline adjustments, and are empowered to stop the production line if they detect an error. This doesn't just accelerate responsiveness, it reduces invisible costs like errors under pressure, trust-related conflicts, or the energy drain of constant monitoring. When trust becomes the silent operating system of a company, it conserves the most valuable resource, human mental energy. And it is that conservation, not control, that sustains high performance. Japanese firms in Europe and Southeast Asia show that trust can transcend cultures with proper training. One of the clearest testaments to the strength of trust-based management is the success of Japanese companies overseas. Despite cultural differences, firms like Toyota in the UK, Uniqlo in Vietnam, and Komatsu in Thailand have upheld their philosophy of leading through partnership. They don't impose a rigid Japanese model. Instead, they implement cross-training, internal mentorship, and gradually foster a hybrid organizational culture. Local employees learn to report proactively, propose improvements, and uphold quality not because they're watched, but because they feel trusted. That trust triggers professional pride, a borderless trait. It becomes evident then, trust is not a local virtue, but a universal asset when built deliberately. Great leadership is not about volume, it's about the depth of connection. Some leaders believe that to run an organization smoothly, they must control every detail. Japanese managers, however, prove the opposite. The less surface-level control, the deeper the need for trust. Trust isn't born from wall posters, but from leaders who live the values they expect others to follow. They lead by example before making demands, listen before judging, and accept risks so their people can grow. In this model, leadership is not a position, it is a long-term commitment to human development. In a world where change is constant and technology increasingly replaces people, trust is the final refuge for preserving identity and human connection in management. Leading with trust is not easy, but it is the most worthwhile path. Trust-based management is not a trend, it is the deep foundation of a human-centered and sustainable leadership philosophy. From Japanese workplace culture, we learn this truth. Power doesn't always need volume sometimes. It speaks loudest in quiet credibility. When leaders don't monitor yet systems still run smoothly. When employees give their best not out of fear, but out of commitment, that is the apex of leadership. Trust doesn't replace leadership, it elevates it. In a post-control world where trust is a rare asset, the Japanese model reminds us, sometimes the best way to lead is to step back so others can step forward on their own. Ask yourself, are you leading with your voice or with your quiet credibility? In a world where trust is increasingly rare, redefining the nature of power is urgent. Start small. Listen before you evaluate. Delegate instead of command, and accept small risks so others can grow. If this article helped you reflect on your leadership style, share it with someone in management. Because sometimes, one conversation is enough to start a new leadership culture, one where authority begins with trust.